If we should keep it going as a regular occurrence in Dublin. So our first speaker tonight is Mr. Ray Yeates, CE Arts Officer.
Keep clapping because I'm the courageous one here.
Yay!
We'll make sure that a load of people can gather around here so they've not seen I do.
Come over.
It's great, yeah. Stay where you are. I'm going to talk about something I talk about all the time and give probably the example I most like, and that is it's not a great day to give this example, but I think it was about a week ago, I was right at the top of Civic Offices. Civic Office is huge and you could spend your whole life going around it, but there's a tiny little office right at the front on the 5th floor, and it was a really sunny morning, and the sun was reflecting all the way down the Liffey. Not a chance, we don't always get that view of the Liffey, but it was an amazing view. And I just sat for a moment before the meeting began and kind of looked down the Liffey, right? And it reminded me of that thing that scene would have been there no matter whether I looked at it or not. You know what I mean? The sun would have been shining down the Liffey, no matter what, nothing got to do with me. But if I stood for a moment or sat for a moment and appreciated it, that's something completely different. And it's something that only human beings can do. They can stand and appreciate things, just as you hopefully are standing and appreciating me right now. And that is the entry point for people to start to use their imaginations, their passion, and to enter into the arts. And of course the arts is kind of my day job, or encouraging people to do arts is my day job. And a lot of people can feel excluded from it because they forget that they have that ability to stand and appreciate things just like anyone else. And if you add a bit of passion and enthusiasm to that moment of appreciation, you're very quickly into the basic culture, and then you're very quickly into whichever kind of culture you want to appreciate the most, whether it's all kinds of arts, whether it's sport, whether it's play, whether it's recreation, whether it's walking out with your kids. That's really what culture is. And culture is something that's central to human development. Recently I was doing some studies about literacy. And literacy is entirely affected by how well people use their imagination. If children are not inspired to think about what they're reading and what they're imagining, they simply won't learn to read very well. So cultural reflection and the ability to use our imagination is central to everything that we do. It's weird, Mike.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Okay. So I'm going to wrap up now because it's only a 3 to 5 minute talk, and say, please use your ability to appreciate, stop for a second, look at this incredible city that we have, and remember that the arts are important because of everybody's universal ability. Thank you.
Do you think the way this country works is okay?
No.
Well, think about it. Maybe it's not. Do you consider it to be far from perfect, but maybe a more or less, a fair democracy?
No. No.
Do you see any point in changing it?
Yes. Yeah.
I think so too. But if you look around at the way the world works today, look at yourself, look at your life, think about what you see. We know that it's not perfect. There's not a perfect system. Things aren't always fair. Sometimes it's better to cut corners to get something done. We all know that, yeah? Sometimes we mightn't like what our bosses do, but they do create jobs, and surely that's a good thing. And our politicians are corrupt, but that's just the way things are. You'll hear people talking about the Irish character, or a bunch of twinkly-eyed chancellors, or, different explanations for this corruption. But that's bullshit. That's actually a load of old blarney. Okay? Now, I really believe there is a better way. And it's actually not that complicated, it's not that fantastical. There's a book I read, it was written by an Irish Times journalist, just an ordinary Irish Times journalist, Fintan O'Toole, called Enough is Enough. And he's not a genius, he wasn't a working genius, but he outlined very simply how things work. And probably a lot of people know it already, but I'm going to use Speaker's Corner to express what was put in this book. Yeah? Does anybody want the book? Simply, okay, so once every 5 years, this is how our system works. Just think about this, it's simple enough. Once every 5 years, we elect a local TD. These TDs form a government who decide policy for the next 5 years. It's called representational democracy, and it's found all across the world. We can't all be deciding policy, so the story goes, we elect someone to represent our interests in the discussions on policy making. Except in Ireland, we can't do that, and it's in this book, and I'll explain it quite simple. TDs literally can't do their job. Opposition TDs, as we know, have absolutely no say in policy making. Then government TDs, because of the whip system, have to do exactly what the party decides for them to do. Okay, so they have no stake in policy making. If they disagree with the government, they're kicked out of the party. If ministers disagree with what the government is doing, what the Taoiseach outlines or what the leaders outline, they have to resign, as we've seen happened already. So essentially, you've got a Taoiseach and a couple of advisors deciding on government policy. Quite plainly, this is not a functional democracy. And this needs to change. Isn't that simple? Yeah? That's simple, that's it. I'll give you one more example. On a local level, I know of a town that was looking to build a school. It was a village that had a boys' school, a girls' school, and 2 country schools outside. And they were going to build one new school and bring all 4 together. It was a good idea. So they entered the process of building a new school. It was going to take about 4 or 5 years. A new school was going to cost about €5 million. In the meantime, an award was highlighted for 2 teacher schools to get €450,000 to build an extension. One of the country schools applied for this and built an extension, even though everyone knew that this school would be redundant in 1 year. There was no point spending it, except, of course, on a local level. Why not? The money's come from central government, why not spend it? It's good for jobs at a local level, so for the objective. But of course, another thing, the school was eventually built, costing €6 million and $6,450,000. But everyone in the town knew that the population was decreasing, so actually the girls' school was big enough for all the other 4 schools joined together. They could have just used the girls' school. So essentially there was, €6.5 million spent for no reason, right? We all know in stories like this happens all the time. The point being that people at a local level know how to spend money much better. So what I'm promoting is, of course, something that's across a smaller government at a local level, yeah? Okay? When people have power over their own lives, they work better. And yeah, people will always be corrupt, so we have to resist. People will always exploit each other, so we have to fight. And sometimes we are totally powerless, so we have to struggle. Unite, work harder, make change.
Me an email after 9 o'clock. I'll have my glass of wine there and then I'll be agreeing to things. Anyway, I was saying to myself, what the hell am I doing coming into Temple Garden? And I said to my ma, who's 90 up there, and I go in Temple, she says, oh my God, she said, be very careful. I didn't tell her I was standing on a box. Anyway, 2 things was in my head this week. And it's a little bit different to the last 2 speakers. And I think the culture, and Ray said, is really important. That, sometimes we don't see what's about us and all those things. And then the other is around try to make change. And yes, our government, those people who go in with a reason and they think that they can do change, can't do it. And do read that book because I've read it myself. And it's civil servants in this country who make the laws. But anyway, the 2 things in my head this week are there's 60 million being spent to facilitate the European Union presidency here in this country. €60 million. Now that's some party to have people at their dinners up in the castle and all around the place. We're in the same week in this city in terms of people who are more vulnerable than others. I live in the Liberties, and at the back of Oliver Bond and beside the NCAD, there's been a man living in a doorway on cardboard there for the last 8 years, and he died this week. And that's really something that's in my heart this week. But then you had the two people in Drumalee who were 4 days dead before they were found in our city. They didn't have the heating on. Okay, they were drinking a few drinks and they hadn't eaten. But they were two human beings in our city that died. And due to cuts and things like that, the community response to people isn't as good as it should be. So there's 3 people in our city who are very vulnerable who passed away, while at the same time that we're spending 60 million on people who are coming and are welcome to come, but we could have put this off for 2 to 3 more presidencies. There's 60 families a day being cut off in their heating, and there's people making choices between heating and food. And there are people, and I know for a fact, that are living in cars, women living in cars because they can't pay the mortgage. And our own Veronica has had to give up 4 houses. So the policies of austerity is not suiting the Irish people. And there's something wrong with the Irish people, that they aren't rising up. And there's something in us that we have to do. And we have to take to the streets, and we have to fight back, and we have to find courage, and we have to have our voices heard. There's other things to be doing on a Saturday night than standing on a box in this. But if we care about human beings, and if we care about a society that is more about people than profit or buying things, we have to do something about it. We have to make it a part of the principle of our lives and our actions. So I know it's the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, and I know they've done nothing for us at all, but they are calling people out on the 9th of February. They're calling them out against the policies of austerity. And the more we get out, the better. The more that we get to the streets on that day, the better. Now, I just found this little poem, and I worked in Simon for 11 years, and I lived in Simon as a full-time worker. And I have many different memories of different homeless people who came through Simon. But this little poem just kind of says that we need to become a better society. Barry fell dead in the street. A crowd of inquisitive people gathered around him. The traffic stopped. The police picked him up and deposited him at the morgue. And 3 days in succession, they waited for a relative, a friend, an acquaintance to come. And nobody came. Then Barry was placed in a special refrigerator. What a symbol. A fridge for people who are forgotten. They waited another 2 weeks. Still nobody came. Then one afternoon, he was put in a hearse and taken to the cemetery, buried like a lost object. Barry was a human being, a man alone in the city, buried long ago by other people. And that's similar to the man who lived in the doorway beside the NCAD and across from the community of Oliver Bond. And I just think that we've got to go to them levels, and we've got to know that there are people who need us, and that people at the bottom need to be fought for and advocated for, and that we all have to, as the last man said, unite and fight back. So do the best you can, and just remember that there's others, I suppose, worse off than us, and that we as a society have to take care of them. La lucha continua.
So there's two things I've been thinking about lately besides theatre, which I've been thinking about a lot. But the two things that I wanted to talk here about, one of them is, the first one is mental health and how we treat mental health as a country. And the second one is the using, I suppose, the power that the Catholic Church used to have over us as a metaphor for something positive. So I've been thinking about those two things kind of in conjunction with each other. I've been kind of noticing an awful lot lately how, I suppose, people are walking around kind of in the world with us, and it's very obvious to the rest of us that these people need help and that they're not in the best of spirits and not in the best of form, whether that be depression or whether that be an actual just lack of touch with reality, or whether that be all different ends of the scale. And that's something that's been coming back to me time and time again. And I've been thinking about, like, what can we do about that? And what is that about? And I think it's an Irish, I suppose, culture of leave everyone to their own and don't kind of get involved and don't mind your own business and they'll sort it out themselves. And I'm thinking about where that came from and why we have that in our cycle. And I suppose the work that we're doing enough at the moment is looking at Ireland and looking at the legacy that we've had over the last few years. And that's what this whole, suppose, next 10 years is going to be about, centenaries and looking back and taking stock and all that and the rest. And the other thing I've been thinking about is the power that the Catholic Church had, used to have, whatever way you want to look at it, but that power has dwindled and what that was about. And I suppose that had a huge kind of control over how we functioned and what we did. And what if there was something positive that could have that same kind of thing? Because I don't believe that kind of level of control is positive. But I think, what if there was something else that we could look at? And the idea that's been toying around in my head, and I suppose it's provoked by stuff like First Fortnight as well, and a lot of the work in the festival has been looking at this stuff. But the idea that's been kind of coming back to me, it's just a phrase, and I'll leave you with the phrase. First Holy Counselling. First Holy Counselling.
I'm not going to speak as eloquently or on a macro level as the previous people, because I'm not that intelligent.
Don't believe you.
My name is Anthony Sharry, or Anton, or 7243165C, or defendant number 157420, or the occupier, or bail number 2467, or student number 2507, or the bollocks, or the good lad, or Anthony, depending on who is calling me and in what situation. I prefer the daddy one, or the Anto, which is what I'm mostly known as. I've been stuck through life. I've had barriers. Some of the barriers were self-made. Some of the barriers were self-made and then rebuilt again. Some of the barriers were because of this mirage of life that was put in front of me, this advertisement of college, job, mortgage, bills, family. Bank of Ireland, 145,000. Permanent TSB, 130,000. Again, some self-made. But these are mine. I'm paying the price for these now. We can find ourselves stuck by lots of different so-called barriers, relationships, money, addiction. One thing that will bring you around this barrier, it's either a bridge or the help of people. As the people before me spoke, especially I think the lady from the Liberties, and the chap who spoke about Fintan O'Kill's book, it is about uniting. It's about saying that there is another world outside what you think. Don't be walking around with your head down. I was brought up in the inner city. Never heard of theatre, drama, stage, anything like that. Got involved in it after going through some troubles. Was left on my own, had nothing, lost my house, huge debts, gambling addiction. Went through the whole lot. And I came back because of theatre. And that's what brought me back. There's a play called The One We Left Behind. It's a play wrote by Daniel Sharry. He's a cousin of mine. And there's a character in that play called Arthur Casey. And he's I can't give you the full play. He's trapped in his flat. I know it's 3 to 5 minutes. I'm probably not holding me time.
All right.
He's trapped in his flat. And he's needing to get out before his wife arrives home from continuing to follow the promised life. She was out chasing the career, the money, the mortgage, the promise of credit from banks, have a credit card on us, have an overdraft. She was still chasing it. Of course, when two ships are passing in the night, relationships are going to suffer. they'd missed the chance of enjoying their lives together because they were too busy following the commercial dream that was promised to us all. He can't open the door to his flat. He wants to get out. The reason he can't open the door to his flat is because he's temporarily lost the use of his hands. One is stuck in a sentimental vase that he cannot smash, and the other is glued to a wedding album. A wedding album from a past time in Ireland, of a happier time, when people were together, when people spoke, when people exchanged stories, when shanachies existed, and social networks and internets and all this stuff didn't take away from the relationship between people. But there's a scene in this play, and it's Arthur Casey, and he's trying to explain why he's stuck in his flat and what it feels like. And he struggles. He struggles with words the same way I'm struggling with words standing in front of you. And he approaches it like this. I don't know how to explain it. I can't. She's spending all of her time away from the flat, and I'm stuck in here on my own a lot. I'm stuck in here on my own a lot. And it's getting to me. It's getting to me. It's driving me mad. How do we put it into words? See, I can't explain it to you. How can I explain it to you? Right, take this, right? There's an insect stuck above the fitted kitchen in your flat. Oh, wait, sorry, not a flat anymore, that was torn down. It's an apartment. Stuck up above the cupboards in your kitchen. Well, it's a blue bottle or a large fly. I couldn't tell you exactly 100% which one, but considering the scale of insect intelligence, you know, if someone has actually sat down and considered the scale of insect intelligence, you know, thought about the aptitude of the insect world, considered whether a caterpillar was more intelligent than a centipede, well then I'm pretty sure the fly that's stuck in the ceiling in my flat. Because in my mind, the fly is the least intelligent of all the insects. And it takes one dumb insect to land on the wet paint on my ceiling a few years ago. But intelligence isn't the point I'm getting at. The point I'm trying to get at is, it's still there. It hasn't rotted. It's stuck in exactly the same spot since when it first landed. It's like it's frozen in time. And I've been thinking about it, you know. If this flat ever gets knocked down, like me tower, that fly will still be stuck on the painted side of a piece of rock. Who knows? It'll be getting transported up to the dump, and it might roll off the back of the truck. That piece of rock, with the fly stuck on it, in that ditch, for years and years. The whole world, the whole country, goes on about its business. Head down. Business grows. The country keeps going. That fly will still be stuck on the painted side of a piece of rock, eternally clinging to the debris. I couldn't stand to be like that, so I needed to change.
This Speaker's Corner in action here today for the last 2 weeks. I'll just touch on a few things Rita said there. 60 million being spent on this big party for the Bureaucrats to come over here and enjoy themselves. It's actually going to be 70 million by the time it's finished. It only lasts for 6 months. In max, that's 12 million per month. We spent 15,000 of your money buying tiles for them. Lime green with yellow stars around them. So as soon as they arrive, they'll be given one of these tiles. Now, what is Enda Kenny playing at? If I was a tea shop, I would pick them up in a horse and cart and bring them around. I'd show them that the country is starving. I wouldn't put out a great front and say we're booming. We should be living, showing them where we are today, that we're starving and we're all struggling. We're all struggling to make ends meet. People can't put food on the table. They're living on crisps and any hands out they can get. There's big queues up there at Christmas and loads of great people in this country handing out hampers. They all ran out of hampers for the Christmas to feed children, young children, with babies, no nappies. This is the country we live in today. This is Ireland. We need to show the bureaucrats that's where we're at, not put on a big front for them. 70 million is going to be, I think, by the end of it, for 6 months. Denmark put it on it last year. It only cost them 30 million. But no, Enda has to prove the big shot again. He's over there linking the bureaucrats and getting the headlocked by Angela Merkel or somebody, and they're just laughing at her. That's what they're doing, they're laughing at him. okay, he inherited the problem, he didn't make it. But if I had been Taoiseach and inherited this problem, the first thing I would have done, I went to the people of Ireland on the television every week and told them where we're at. I would have said to the people, knowing that the bureaucrats in Brussels are looking at them, and I would have said, this country cannot afford to pay them debts. We just cannot. We're now living in austerity for the last 6 years, and it's getting worse and worse. We're not getting out of it. As I said before, capitalism only works if money is circulating. And if you take money out of people who are willing to spend the money, then it's not circulating. Little shops are going down, little businesses. Every day they announce new job creations, and then at the back of it here, another place closes down and twice as many jobs go. The only reason the unemployment figures are going down is because the young people, the brains of this country, are leaving our country. The best people in the country, who we rely on. You people are a lot younger than me. It's your fight. I've been through it in the 80s, and I'm on back again. I've done many years I have left. But it's your fight, and it's your children's fight that you have to fight for. Well, for that march, as Rita said, but I cannot defend the unions. We're 6 effing years into this austerity now, and they've done nothing. The unions have done nothing because the main executives of the union are on over 200,000 a year plus. They're also all members of the Labour Party. The Labour Party are part of the people that is inflicting these cuts. So why now is TUC calling this big march and demonstration? Because it's all over the internet, Facebook, Twitter, that's where are the fucking unions? That's what people are saying. Where are the unions? So they're out now, they're willing to fight because they know their arse out the window. The workers need to claim back their union. The workers pay their wages, they pay their subs, so they need to claim back the union. They need to march against the union now if necessary. I don't believe any union official should be on 200,000 a year on the sweat. The things that they condemned, working for the sweat of the employer. Now the workers are working for, the sweat is paying the fucking union officials. So it's gone backwards instead of forwards. We need to reclaim the unions and we need to get out there and march. I'm not saying don't support that strike, certainly do, and support any action that will make this government try and change their mind, make this government look against austerity. But really, folks, what we need is a new party. We need people to go forward, people who understand. Most of the people in the Dáil today have never been in Fatima Mansions. They've never been in Michael's estate. They've never been in Ballybock House. They've never been in Ballymun before it was torn down. They know nothing about real life. They don't know anything about how people are suffering. They've never worked, most of them, believe it or not. They've never worked. They went straight out of college, most of them, or if they did work, they were all teachers or something like that. They never worked on a building site, so they don't really know what we're up against. So we need to form a new party. There's loads of things you can do. That's just all over the internet now. But what can I do to change things? There's loads of things. Befriend anybody on Twitter or Facebook who has like-minded ideas as yourselves, who isn't happy with what's going on in this country. Just befriend them and start adding to it and start giving a little bit of a speak. There's loads of different blogs, call for a revolution, call for a general strike. Look them all up. I started one last week called the Social Justice Party. If we get enough support and I can organise meetings, I'll start a party. I'll get funds and I'll pay for it. I'll pay for the meeting place. And we can get things moving. But we mustn't despair. We must know together we can change this. But you must take action. And just by liking some page can be an action. Because I tell you this much, social media has them shitting the brick at the moment. And the Labour Party is finished. If there's an election tomorrow, the Labour Party are gone. Imagine a man on €180,000 per year being asked on public television in front of a live audience, but Pat, you promised these things. What did he say? He said, I'm sorry I couldn't do them. No, he didn't. What did he say? But that's what you do when you're going for an election. You tell fucking lies. Does that make sense? Why are we supporting these people? We must do it. Act now. The first thing, as Rita said, is that strike. Get out there and march for that strike. 22,000 people marched today because for the pro-life lobby. And that's grand, and that's great, because see people really looking for what they want. So we need to march. We need at least 50,000 people out in the street. 100,000 will get them, and let them know that you have a voice, because Enda is laughing all the way to the bank. He's looking down his nose at you and laughing. He said over Brussels, the Irish people won't march. They'll do what I tell them. Show them that you won't do what I tell them. Arise! Arise!